Fear. One of our core emotions, easily exploited when someone jumps out at you, pops a paper bag near your face, or pranks you to death with a tire iron.
Uh-oh. Well, there are beings that draw from fear itself, and use it to become highly powerful and your worst nightmare.
With reality warping powers to boot, and with their sights mostly set on youngsters, these may just be some of the most irredeemable boogeymen in fiction.
Freddy Krueger, the Springwood slasher who terrorized Elm Street.
And Pennywise, the dancing clown and eater of worlds.
For this episode, Pennywise will be drawing from not just his original book, but the miniseries and movies as well. As for Freddy, the new nightmare, the TV show, and the comics will be included in addition to the main series of movies. No fucking reboot Freddy though.
Without further delay, let's see which of these two horror icons can scare each other for a change.
From birth, Frederick Charles Krueger was destined to be a truly frightening being. He was born after a nun was assaulted by 100 maniacs. That's already not a good start.
Freddy was immediately given up by his nun mother, who could already tell what he was going to become. He was put under the care of Mr. Underwood, an alcoholic Alice Cooper who abused Freddy. If that weren't enough, being the bastard son of 100 maniacs got Fred bullied in school, to the point that in his teenage years, Freddy would cut himself.
Don't feel that bad, since Freddy also killed and tortured animals for fun, and he cut himself mostly because he seemed to derive pleasure from it. You can see how this led him to his violent lifestyle, especially after he actually killed Mr. Underwood himself. After this, he's still not quite the dream demon yet. That part comes after he worked as a janitor.
I'd start killing kids too if I had to become a janitor. Okay, not really, but this couldn't have helped his mental state. Although hey, he seemed to have gotten past murdering his foster dad, and even had himself a wife and a daughter. Things were seemingly taking a brighter turn for Freddy's life. Until his daughter uncovered his murder hut, filled with newspaper clippings, clawed gloves in the making, and all kinds of horrible things. Freddy had actually been a serial killer in hiding, disguised as an unassuming member of society. But once the cat was out of the bag, Freddy got put on trial.
The arrest warrant was signed in the wrong place, and the judge was also drunk. This was all it took for Freddy to get off scot-free. This naturally made the parents pissed, so they cornered him into his murder hut, then burned him alive, along with the whole building. When Freddy died, however, he was met with the Dream Demons.
These Dream Demons offered him power to become something much worse, the stuff nightmares are made of. He was given the ability to enter people's dreams and kill them there. Catch being, whenever you die in your dreams, you die for real. With this power, Freddy took revenge on Elm Street, killing a bunch of teenagers, including the kids of the people who burned him to death. Eventually, when they ran out of ideas, he basically left Elm Street a barren wasteland.
In our world, since we don't have to deal with him, he's a pop culture icon who, for a time, even got marketed heavily to kids. Anyone want some Freddy bubblegum? Or want to meet him at Universal Studios alongside Woody Woodpecker? How about the Nightmare on Elm Street NES game? Try playing it with the Power Glove, sure. While you're playing it, you can listen to his album, which actually exists and was made.
Songs on this album include Do the Freddy, All I Have to Do Is Dream, and Down in the Boiler Room. I admit, I have an affinity for the Fred man, but why advertise him to kids? He kills kids! But okay, Freddy is a powerful reality warper and demon, so he has strengths to go with him.
Freddy's physicality is very dependent on whether he has you trapped in the dream world, or you've managed to get him out into the real world. In the dream world, he is the master, but in the real world, he's no slouch either.
Despite seemingly being a normal burn victim in the real world, he can actually be seen duking it out with Jason Voorhees and Ash Williams, the first of which was doing all kinds of shit like ripping his arm off and flinging him around like a toy. He even decapitated Freddy, and he was still alive and winking at the camera. Freddy can scale to both, given that he's able to harm them and get harmed by them, setting him up to be small building to building level, since both Ash and Jason have feats around this level.
In the dream world, of course, it's a different story. He'll usually have his victim right where he wants them, and as long as they fear him, he has control, and can seemingly be as powerful as he wants. He already surpasses his small building level real-world physicality by inhaling a building, or becoming a mountain, or creating a small planet with a bunch of cars on it. Or I guess multiple city blocks. Small-ass planet. Well, he can at least send a guy's house into space with his telekinesis, in a matter of seconds. It shows great fortitude that it didn't give him a headache, I suppose.
However, I'd argue he can go even higher than that, potentially even at a cosmic scale. In the novels, it's established that the dream world is in fact a parallel world to our world. It's vaguely defined. It could mean that the dream world has its own version of Earth and that's it, or it could mean that the dream world has its own version of our very universe. We have seen before that the dream world can house stars. The only thing we know for sure is, in that dream world, Freddy is in complete control. That much is established throughout the entire Elm Street franchise. After all, he houses the dream demons inside his body. Freddy's only limit is his imagination.
Having a wide imagination means that you have a wide array of intelligence and skills to pull from. It's very common that Freddy expertly studies whoever he's stalking, and turns not only their fears, but sometimes even their interests against them, such as when he became a Super Freddy to kill off a comic book reading kid.
Freddy manipulated Jesse into killing people and eventually becoming a host for Fred. He's disguised himself as Nancy's father in order to lure her in for a hug, where he promptly killed her. Aww. And he's been known to blur the line between reality and the dream world, causing his victims to go insane.
He also spends a lot of time thinking of jokes and wordplay to go along with the murders he commits. He must have a lot of spare time on his hands.
Rick, you little meatball. Hey, Danny, better not dream and drive. How's this for a wet dream?
With that intelligence and creativity, as we've said, he has almost no limit to what he can do in the dream world. That said, we can only fully assume that he'd utilize powers that he's been shown to use before, but that's still a lot to go over.
Starting off, he can conjure up anything and use it to his advantage. He has telekinetic abilities, allowing him to toss around weapons and even people like ragdolls. Freddy can teleport around the dream world as he pleases, and he can become invisible and intangible, allowing him to phase through objects.
He can possess people as well. He usually utilizes this to manipulate others, and to have a greater effect in the real world. Freddy can do this gradually through dreams, or more directly like a ghost or demon is known to do. He can then kill the body and leave it, or even pull tendrils out of them to manipulate it like a puppet. Freddy also managed to briefly come back into the real world by possessing his skeleton.
On to more of his abilities. He can transmutate foes at will, like when he turned a girl who was afraid of bugs into a big bug that he then squished. Freddy also has time manipulation, able to create time loops in order to trap people, forcing them to repeat the same thing over and over for all of eternity. Or at least until he lets them go. Also, strangely enough, he can rewrite history. Like, real, actual history, not just in the dream world. In the Freddy's Nightmares episode, The End of the World, a girl has a nightmare about her mom dying, but when she saves her mom in the dream, it became true. Weird, but that seemed to be Freddy's doing.
Freddy has also demonstrated an immunity to magic, at least to a certain extent. He can also stretch out his limbs in a really gross way, and shapeshift in numerous other ways, ranging from fully looking like another person, to growing into a giant, or a drugged-out caterpillar. Perhaps this may also tie into his ability of regeneration, given that he can shape his body however he desires. He can even regenerate from being turned into a mush pile, or he can just clone himself from it.
As Ducko said, yeah, Freddy can multiply into multiple versions of himself, and as we've said, he can read your mind and learn what you're most afraid of and use it against you. Freddy also has a knack for absorbing souls of people he's killed, making him even stronger than before. He can absorb them after a kill, but if he doesn't want to wait that long, he can just suck it out of you.
Freddy can also manipulate the environment around a person, turning the entire environment into a desert, or turning the floor into quicksand, or just usually turning everything into a boiler room. Freddy's favorite place to be, it seems. Freddy also has fourth wall awareness. Like even when he hosted that show, he seems to be able to manipulate or react to the medium in some way. And he got pissed off when he got censored, immediately realizing when it happened.
Hey! Hey! Bleep this!
He even demonstrates some ability to leave to other worlds, like when he invaded another seemingly happy show to kill them all off, or even entering the real world to kill off various cast and crew of the Freddy films.
Truthfully, we could sit here all day to discuss what Freddy can do. It's a dream, you get it, he can do whatever, and he capitalizes on this as often as he can. To elaborate on his summoning ability, which feels like a while ago since it was the first ability we mentioned, Freddy can conjure up weapons for himself.
In terms of straight up weaponry, Freddy is most infamous for his clawed glove, and can even be added onto, with drills or needles filled with drugs.
Let's get high.
Or anything like that. Though that may be partially due to his reality warping, which helps a lot for variety in fighting methods.
Also, weirdly enough, Freddy once summoned a nuke, which he originally intended to use to destroy the entire planet, but decided against it once he realized he'd have more fun killing us off one by one. Since he never destroys the Earth, we can't tell if the nuke is really that powerful, but this could add weight to Freddy's planet-level capabilities. But aside from that scene being really cheesy, and Freddy himself being incredibly corny, he has a couple of exploitable weaknesses.
Freddy is not flawless. Looking at his face alone tells you this. But seriously, if you forget about him or don't fear him, and the rest of the population follows suit, Freddy will be severely weakened. He's also weak to holy objects, being a demon and all.
If someone realizes it's a dream and wakes up while holding Freddy, they can pull him out of the dream world and kill him, although this tends to just send him back to the dream world. It's the holy weapons and such that usually require resurrections. Also, he apparently can't look in the mirror without the souls in his body ripping out of him. If I were as ugly as him, I also wouldn't like looking in the mirror much.
Even with all this, Freddy is incredibly powerful, and if you ever find yourself caught in a dream where he shows up, you better hope you're really lucky.
You are all my children now.
The town of Derry, Maine was never a normal town. Most of the adults were mean and unobservant, and the bullies were so bad, they were murderous. This could all be because Derry was formed when a giant meteorite struck the Earth. Goodbye, dinosaurs!
But what if they didn't? The meteor wasn't just some rock. It was Pennywise. Or rather, the form it took at the time. See, its only form isn't the clown he later became known as. It seemed to come from a void created of the Macroverse, a being of pure evil that feeds off of fear. It eventually stuck to Earth, coming around to Derry, Maine, and waking up every 27 years to feast off of afraid beings. Usually children, since they seem the most susceptible and vulnerable. Yeesh.
To do all these things unopposed, Pennywise needed a very specific set of skills. Skills that make him a nightmare for the kids of Derry. Pennywise's strength varies depending on the avatar he's using. In his more basic clown form, he's still very capable of ripping off limbs, biting chunks into people, and stretching open a water drain in the shower.
But because of the variance of his forms, it can far surpass this. Such as the previously mentioned meteorite that struck the Earth. Goodbye, mountain. The seeming death of Pennywise also caused an earthquake that took out the whole town of Derry. But that's not really the true form, since the truest form of it exists in the Macroverse, alongside his brother, Maturin, the cosmic turtle that burped up the universe on a whim.
This form is basically incapable of damage, and Pennywise's physical form can even reach what is closest to its true form. Like this, it didn't take damage from anything that the other forms did. The Losers Club are only able to harm and kill it after defeating its true form in an astral battle. Outside of being torn apart by characters who are amplified by the power of this versus God, Gan, nothing is shown to stop this form of its avatar at any point. But speaking of that true form, this is where things get ridiculous.
The true form of it far surpasses any avatar it tries to use on our plane of reality. It exists outside of time and space. Considers a single universe to be nothing more than a puny egg, since it and Maturin and similar beings exist outside of the Dark Tower, which contains infinite universes, making them seemingly outerversal, macroversal, whatever you consider the term to be. What I'm getting at is that it is much more abstract than what we've usually covered on this show before.
It gets confusing. We went from ducks and capes to beings living outside of our multiverse. I guess we can also mention for speed, he was able to pull Bill and Richie's souls outside of the universe within minutes at the speed of light. He also maybe survives his supposed death, considering there are hints throughout the Stephen King universe that allude to this.
I don't need to tell you at this point that this is not just some stupid clown. This is a cosmic being far beyond our comprehension. Its mind is far beyond ours.
Pennywise is manipulative, consistently able to convince kids to trust in him, and lure them into a false sense of security, even when said kids are initially wary of his outward scary appearance. As was the case with Victoria Fuller, where he faked a sob story about people being scared of him, as he played to her sympathy.
Much like Freddy, it reads into people's minds and fears, and directly utilizes them to draw the maximum amount of being afraid from them. But ultimately, the most important thing is what I started with. We are not even truly capable of comprehending its true form or mind.
For starters, he's a reality warper with many abilities. He can become invisible to anyone he wants, and he often likes to create illusions for people. only the illusions can actually affect and harm you. It's capable of making a wide array of illusions that have no limit to what they can be or do. He made a house seem perfectly fine for Beverly, but it was actually a demolished wreck of a house. He made a book start moving like a movie, and he even reached his hand out of said book. And he even once did the same with a projector.
This is all probably because Pennywise can create and manipulate matter itself, including doors marked with varying degrees of scariness, and conjuring up things ranging from a flood of blood, balloons, or fortune cookies filled with disgusting crap. In addition to this, it is constantly changing and manipulating its own form. As we previously mentioned, its physical form is not the true form, so it can be changed as it sees fit.
But all living things must abide by the laws of the shape they inhabit, so Pennywise is bound to some rules when doing this. Still, he has used this alongside his telepathy to become people's worst nightmares. He can transform into dead loved ones, movie monsters, and even a Paul Bunyan statue. He even once became Stan's decapitated head, which he used to contort into a thing-like creature with spider legs. Or, you know, he could also do stand-up.
Wheezy, how's your sex life? What's your sex life?
It can mix and match these forms to become a strange and varying creature, grow giant from its initial form, become a giant spider with a clown head, and can even become something approximating the true form, making it incredibly difficult to kill physically or even mentally.
Pennywise can light his own head on fire, he can regenerate from harm, and has shown mind control, especially over the town of Derry. His mind control allows him to take over people's bodies, and even get them to sway along to a song about calling Richie gay.
I know your secret, your dirty little secret. I know your secret, your dirty little secret.
That's not very nice. What would be nice to have, though, is teleportation. Unfortunately for its victims, it has that, and can even create pocket dimensions within the fabric of our reality that it sends its victims to, going to versions of the person's past, or alternative versions of familiar locations, each altered to exploit their greatest fears and anxieties. But what can be even more effective for drawing out a person's mental instability is Pennywise's most signature ability, the Deadlights.
The Deadlights are a look into its true form that Pennywise can show his victims in order to rob them of their minds, often leading people to go insane, their life being immobile and lifeless while their mind goes crazy. However, this can be combated and stopped by acts of caring and love from another party.
Pennywise's other signature are the balloons it conjures up. They can let people know of its presence, or they can explode blood out, or even become giant, exploding and sending them flying back. Pennywise can also cause himself to float, using the balloons as a method of transportation. That all said, they're most certain for atmosphere rather than direct combat. Every balloon will eventually get popped or lose air. Let's see what Pennywise's equivalent to that would be.
In spite of Pennywise's great power, it can all come crashing down on him thanks to his own arrogance and overconfidence. He's prone to underestimating his foes, which isn't very good when collective belief and courage can overcome him. Yes, the power of friendship is his weakness.
Pennywise is also susceptible to whatever limitations of the form it has taken, and is not immune to fear itself, especially when it feels it's about to die. Bill Skarsgård, the actor who plays him in the most recent films, also theorizes that it wants to die on some level, though that's not 100% confirmed within canon.
Whether or not he's having suicidal tendencies, Pennywise is an incredibly fearsome foe who can shape a person's mind to its own whims. If you meet him, chances are you'll float too.
27 years, I dreamt of you. I craved you. Oh, I missed you. Waiting for this very moment.
Gotta move, Mikey! Mike, come on, man!
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Time to float.
Well, this is frightening, but let's face our fears. At least one of them will no longer be able to terrorize their world at the end of this.
Can Freddy claw his way to the top, or will Pennywise pop his chances of winning like a balloon?
Freddy vs. Pennywise. Place your bets!
Wait, I didn't do that. And that's my move. Who's there?
Hiya, Freddy. I've seen you in my dreams for 27 years straight. Time to float.
Ha! Clowns don't scare me, but stealing my kill's a dick move, bozo. So if I don't get to kill the kid, I'll settle for his party clown. Let's tango, bitch! Fight! You got style, but no substance. Not this shit again. Oh, that's just rough. Time to put this old dog down! I'll come up with a better joke later. Shit, boy! Play dead! Good boy.
Uh-oh. I'm gonna make you pop! Pop, pop, pop!
Nice try, bitch! You're a fucking dick! Welcome to prime time! It's Hail to the King, baby! I don't like you. Hey, I can see my house from here.
You're fun, Fred. Give me the best you've got and see how far it gets you. Spoilers. It isn't very far at all.
It was fun while it lasted, but nobody lasts long in my world. I can become as strong as I want, even stronger than you. Now I'm really playing with power. Takes care of that, bitch.
Did you really think that would end me?
What the hell? I killed you! Wiped you out! I'm more powerful than you!
You're only as powerful as you can comprehend. But I am beyond that. I'm much more than that. I'm everything you were ever afraid of!
No! You can't destroy the dream world! Not after all I've done! Stop!
Where's all that confidence and bravado from earlier? Weren't you going to kill me? You couldn't even kill an overgrown child in a hockey mask!
Get out of my mind! Get out! Get out!
All that's left now is fear. Tasty, tasty, beautiful fear!
No! My powers! Come back!
Don't you want can get some sleep.
Pennywise wins, and it becomes increasingly obvious that physicality and other such factors are almost null and void when you consider this. These two are basically able to do anything their minds conjure up, but Freddy is limited to a human's mind, while Pennywise is thinking on a vast cosmic level far beyond our plane of existence.
In terms of raw power, we can say that Pennywise had it. Freddy's feats of power are more vague and undefined, while Pennywise is blatant in his cosmic origins. And even if Freddy is universal at his highest, he still doesn't match the clown.
Beyond just a universe, beyond a multiverse, Pennywise exists beyond infinite multiverses, past the Dark Tower where he resides in the Macroverse. Basically, he's an entity far more powerful than Freddy could even comprehend. Anything that Freddy could do to physically match or take down one of its forms can be immediately countered.
Freddy also couldn't just bully Pennywise into becoming small because, for one, that isn't how he's defeated in the actual novel, just the movie. And even then, the ritual of Chewed was always a factor in that, and since we take precedence in the source material, that comes first. Even if such a thing could work, something similar can be said for Freddy. If Pennywise doesn't fear him, he won't be as powerful.
In terms of their general weaknesses, we very much have to consider what can be utilized more against the other. Both run off of fear, but if Pennywise were to manipulate the entire town of Springwood into forgetting about Freddy entirely, which it is very capable of doing, considering what it did to Derry, Freddy will either be robbed of his power, or be wiped out of existence entirely.
Being dead wasn't a problem, but being first up, now that's a bitch!
Not to mention Freddy has more of a troubled and susceptible human mind, showing he has anxieties and fears of his own on numerous occasions.
To give Freddy some credit, he did seem to have a vaster majority of powers, and had less limitations to what he could become. Or at least, he is shown to utilize his abilities more than Pennywise, if it does have such abilities. If they were on even grounds in strength, this might have ended differently. Maybe. But since Freddy just couldn't keep up with the cosmic power of it, he had to meet his fate.
You may have noticed a particularly powerful item that Freddy has had in the past has not been included, that being the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead.
Freddy was restricted from having this because, for one, it belongs to Ashley J. Williams, not Freddy. But even if he did have it, it doesn't really matter too much. Pennywise sleeps for 27 years straight, so this fight would take place in the dream world no matter what. He didn't need to take it into the real world. Yet, even with all of these powers, Freddy can't handle Pennywise.
Making this multiverse match's murderer Pennywise.
Colors weave into a spot.